I don't think even the local land committee have not met with regional organization concerning Talukuyak's concern. Just a short presentation. We need answers to the community's concern. Thank you. I think your comment is just that. I don't think it's a question. If it can be answered, Peter, you may answer the concern.
Behind you. Yep. If you can. Just a reminder to state your name and which organization. Go ahead, Peter.
Again, thank you for the question, Eugenie. We do have processes we've met with. Sorry, I'll slow down. We've met with a KRWB on several occasions. We've brought forth the concerns of Talukyak. We've met with the staffer of SBHTO, and our intention was to carry on communications to see what the next step would be. Every community has a elected board representative of KIA, and those are channels that most organizations should be going through, because at the end of the day, we're the staffers. We can relay the information along to the board through our executive director. But in any case, every community has a representative to KIA, and usually that's where the process starts. If you want to get information to the leadership, that's where it usually goes through.
Jeannie.
The local land committee, will you be coming into the community? Just so we are clear where each organization stands. I just want to emphasize, what do? We do not see any support to our concerns in our community. From my understanding, John Kutuk has been told what the community concerns are. Perhaps he is relaying community concerns to your organization. I know he's fully bilingual, and for him not to be understood is almost impossible. So my understanding is just come into the community, deal with us in person rather than to go through one delegate.
Peter, go ahead.
Peter Taptuna, Community Association. I appreciate the concerns of Ms. Jeannie Ogyuk. We'll do our best. We had agreed after our staff meeting with the manager of the HTO that we were going to keep an open line of communication, and that was our intent. And there's certain documents that are required to get a full understanding of some certain issues. Those have to be exchanged and sent forward and looked at. If we don't have those documents, it's very difficult to analyze or evaluate and form a support around the initiative that the Spence Bay HTO has. But at the end of the day, we do want to keep open lines of communications with the HTO there and the hamlet.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll turn our attention to the panel. We'll get back to our agenda. Just a reminder before we hear you, state your name, your organization for the record, and ensure that mic is close to you so we can hear.
Good morning, everybody. Randy Nunn with the Kokoloktok Hunters and Trappers Organization, along with Lucy Daipina from the hamlet of Kokoloktok and Darlene Hokunak from Kokoloktok Hunters and Trappers Organization as well. This morning, the Kokoloktok HTO is in agreement with the Community Inuit Association on behalf of the draft plan. Our chairperson, Larry Adjun, has forwarded me some information to pass on. He wanted me to pass on the message that our mobile calving and post-calving protection measures have been made in effect with the Kitakmute Regional Wildlife Board. The water crossings, freshwater crossings proposed are too large. We'd like to see those brought down to something like a 5-kilometer buffer range. We have been managing our caribou numbers and tags along with the government of Northwest Territories Regional Wildlife Organizations since 2007. We are currently the only HTO that has been doing predator management with the wolf bounties that we have started with the government of Northwest Territories. That's been going on for the past 3 years now. And we've just recently been informed that predator management for wolves in Nunavut will be extended to Nunavut-wide now. And as for the 3 caribou herds that we currently harvest from around the Kokoloktok area, we have the Dolphin and Union herd, the Blue Nose East herd, and the Bathurst herd to the south. And we're currently in the works with the government of Northwest Territories and other regional wildlife organizations on managing these herds. And all 3 herds, we have a tag system, so we have a lot of restrictions in place already with these 3 herds. And that's all for the HTO side at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Hamlet representative. Thank you, Chair.
Lucy Daipina,
My name is Lucy
Hamlet
Taipana,
Councillor.
Hamlet Councillor.
Kadamayuyunga Hamlet Kunnit.
I am a member of
Hibulak Pamir Kuyayumayaga Stanley Anablak Ilitakimat I Pakalwamnik Simon Taipanamik
to my late husband for the work he has done over the years, including myself. It was very appreciative. He worked for many years as negotiator, leading to today. And the co-workers that he worked with, his fellow negotiators, thank you very much for being part of his life. As a Hamlet councillor, passed through to me as mayor, and I will read it in English, and I appreciate the interpreters at the same time for many of us participating, so we could understand as participants. To ensure there's no mistakes in translation, I will speak in English and read from it.
Community members have provided feedback on the past drafts of the plan during NPC meetings, including March 2014 meeting to discuss the 2012 draft of the plan. November 2019 meeting to discuss the 2016 draft of the plan. Issues with the plan. Community members have addressed several issues with the draft plan. The following key issues are explored in a summary document. Migratory bird habitat, on ice community travel routes, Hilkita River community area of interest, polar bear denning areas, caribou crossing and calving areas, and challenges with the planning process. Issue 1, protecting the migratory bird habitat. The 2016 proposed 2 migratory bird habitat protected areas near Koglokdok, Bathurst, Ilu Inlet, and Lambert Channel, which seasonally limited or fully banned several activities. And this is what the community say about the mapping. From 2019 NPC hearing, both areas need to be expanded. Protection should be extended to Reed Island. Tamnago miki balang mat kikakta na yung mut.
The area is too small. We need to expand.
How did the mapping change the 2019 plan? Kayong magpalaking.
Continuing.
The area identified for expansion are mapped and designated conditional use, but it is unclear how they identified the migratory bird habitats. What concerns should be reviewed in the 2021 plan? The source was from 2019 NPC hearing. Agree these areas are important bird habitats. Concern about the impacts of the restrictions on shipping and future mine in the area. Some members thought the restrictions were too strict. Issue 2, on ice community travel routes. What did the community say about the mapping? The 2016 plan proposed seasonally protected routes from October 15 to August 14. Ice breaking would be banned during this time. Support for the identified on-ice travel routes. Additional on-ice routes should be added. One should be removed. How did the mapping change in the 2021 plan? Additional on-ice routes were added. The route identified for removal by the community was not removed. On-ice travel routes were designated for conditional use areas. What concerns should be reviewed in the 2021 plan? Protection until August 14, too long. Restrictions should end in June. The noise and vibration from ice breaking disturbs animals. Shouldn't be allowed at any time. Huoketak River Community Area of Interest. That's issue number 3. How was this issue addressed in 2016 plan? The draft identified Huoketak River Community Area of Interest as a protected area with a number of activities prohibited year-round. What did the community say about the mapping? Most people do not use this area but recognize its importance. How did the mapping change in the 2021 plan? Huoketak River Community Area of Interest was included and designated limited use. You can look at the definition on page 3. What concerns should be reviewed in the 2021 plan? Support the area outlined as the area of interest. Entire inlet could be considered as a park. Concerns that ships will be allowed to move through the inlet. Issue 4, protecting caribou sea ice crossing, freshwater crossing, calving and post-calving areas. How was the issue addressed in 2016 plan? The plan included maps of important caribou sea ice, and freshwater crossing, as well as calving and post-calving areas. The ice crossing area and Coronation Gulf seasonally limited ice breaking. The water crossing, calving, and post-calving areas were designated as protected areas, which applies restrictions on a number of activities. What did the community say about the mapping? Community agreed with mapped areas on sea ice crossing, but also added more areas. Some changes proposed to mapping freshwater crossings. Agree with calving and post-calving areas, but identified extensions and missing areas. How did the mapping change in 2021 plan? Caribou sea ice crossing areas were expanded and designated conditional use. Caribou freshwater crossing areas were expanded and designated limited use. Caribou calving and post-calving areas were added and expanded and designated limited use. What concerns should be reviewed in 2021 plan? Some disagreement with protected area status for freshwater crossing, since it's already on Inuit-owned lands, would rather be labeled as valued component. Some calving areas may be missing from mapping. Would prefer seasonal restrictions only when caribou are present. Additional issues. 2019 NPC hearing minutes. Identified a palynia that should be protected, a stretch of open water surrounded by ice, especially in the Arctic areas. 2019 NPC hearing minutes. Want more opportunities for economic development. Feedback timeline. 2012 draft plan. Initial of draft of plan was created. 2014 hearings, simplified consultation record with general comments produced. 2016 plan updated on feedback. 2019 hearings, detailed minutes recorded and summarized in this document. Feedback focused on NPC raised. 2021 plan, final draft of the plan created feedback based on feedback. 2022 hearings. Final hearing scheduled in regional hubs.
That's the final presentation from the Hamlet of Kogloktok. I would like to make a comment to the commissioners. When you do your translation, you have always neglected Inuit translation, although you provide translation. As Inuit writing system recognize although the language is recognized. Inuit translation should also be provided so translators, interpreters can follow and interpret properly. We use this writing system and it's never translated. And it would also help people who want to learn this dialect. When it's not written in many meetings, it does not help. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions to the panel?
Any questions?
Other community questions? Thank you, Chair. Jimmy Ulikatarik, HTO Taloriak.
Do a comment for the record. Katikamit East always support Katikamit West, whatever they want. Because we're Inuit, but for some reason we don't get the same support on what we want from Katikamit West. I don't know why it's that way, but we're Inuit, so we always support what Katikamit West wants. So just for the record, good to meet.
Thank you. It's a general comment. It's not a question. Questions, please, from the community delegates. I don't think there's any registered participants. Do you have any questions to the panel? It appears there's none. Thank you. If you have additional comments, panel. And in relations to the climate change, it has changed drastically over the years. There appears to be no great concerns up here. So the climate change, especially on ice conditions, the land, and to the eroding shores. And the weather has become very late in freeze up. The seasons have changed. Have you included this in your plan, how we should handle it in the future?
Sharon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharon Ahalawak, Executive Director for the Nunavut Planning Commission. Jonathan Savoy.
Jonathan. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Savoy from the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thank you, Lucy, for the question. So the issue of changing climate and changing environment having impacts on the timing of different events has been considered in the development of the plan generally. In response to changing circumstances, the Commission also notes that the dates that are included in the draft plan are eligible for being adjusted through a minor variance process for specific projects. And in addition, the plan is meant to be a living document that can be changed over time to reflect any changing circumstances. So a plan amendment could be applied for either by a project proponent to adjust those dates more than a minor variance would allow for, or to simply adjust the dates in the plan to reflect the current reality at any time. Thanks.
Thank you. That concludes our questioning period. Next on the agenda is NTI Nunavutungavik. Good morning. NTI, welcome to the table, to the proceedings. You may proceed. Thank you.
Yep. How did you amma kaniligalu?
Thank you. Good morning. I think the weather is closing in. My name is James Ituluk, First Vice President. I have with me, they are the support staff, the advisors. Bert Dean to my left, he's with Wildlife Department. And Eric Green also working with that department. Nada Dudley. She is our advisor. Manny Barrow, lawyer. Christopher Gillis. He works at the local office in Lance Department. Thank you for coming here so we can discuss draft Nunavut Land Use Plan by Nunavut Planning Commission the agreement says that we have to work on the process of this project and how we can properly plan. There are many things that has to be corrected and amended, and we are here today to discuss Nunavut agreement designate to plan what's to take place, how it should proceed. It's not for only us here today, it's for the whole territory, Nunavut, and the country in general. We need a plan so we can proceed. Thank you, commissioners, for this working on this project. It's very important work. You have invited many delegates and other organizations so Nunavut Planning Commission can be heard. I'm happy to be here participating in this proceeding in Cambridge Bay. Nunavut Tungavik. There are five public hearings so far conducted by Nunavut Planning Commission. First is in this region. I want to recognize the community delegates, especially hunters and trappers organizations. This is your land. You know what's best, how it should be planned. I'm happy that we are here discussing what should take place and how it should be prepared. But Nunavut Tungavik has concerns at this stage on the plan. The amendments needs to be made, additions have to be made. This is our concern. Although we respect what has been done to date in the plan, and I know at the end it will be a final product and it will be proper. I respect you, Commissioner, your staff especially, who have worked tirelessly to produce this document and how it was produced, what's in the future and what's planned. Continue doing a good work. We need to do the best for our land in our Nunavut and its people. And up there on the screen are my short presentations, and these are NTI concerns and what we think that should be done. Inuit rights have to be recognized and look and work towards them. The Inuit rights, it produces many items that would enable the territory, the people, to make way and to think for themselves in many things that they're concerned with. We don't need to be told as the population up here, this is a best way to proceed so you can have a better life. Although NTI, this is why we appreciate and respect the delegates here to tell us what their concerns are in their localities. The Nunavut Planning Land Use Plan has to be completed. NTI, and according to Land Claims Agreement, we have our works, not just towards the people. The wildlife has to be looked after and planned for. And we have heard over the years many endangered species being reduced to a very low number. But the Inuit rights as hunters, surface rights, is very important to the population. And the other concerns that NTI has And what you are planning, could it be technical? And in the land use plan, what has to be produced? How do we get this done? How do we complete it? What do we include in the land use plan?
I don't like being told, but it's a reality that sometimes I go to
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry. NTI respects the Nunavut Planning Commission as whole in general. The production you are producing, NTI, also have concern and the federal government for your participation in this process so we can get the plan complete. There will be 3 signatories who will have to approve this plan as it is presented and prepared by Nunavut Planning Commission. So we will need to hear what your worries are, what concerns you, and how we will react to it and respond to it. And even though, as it is the plan, it's very important to Inuit population and to NTI. We have to be prepared how the land will be planned, the contents, animals, Inuit needs to the communities as whole in general so the future can be brighter in our territory. We are trying very hard that this Nunavut planning be established fully. NTI have worries on the first plan, the initial plans that were produced, how they could be amended so they can be acceptable, and how the Nunavut planning will take place. NPC has prepared this document, and it says that the plan will benefit all of the Inuit. As it is in our land, the plan, how it was prepared, how it will be used, it has to be a proper document for our future and our people, and include amendments if we have to. How will we conserve wildlife, the economy, and to the people that will have to benefit from the economy? NTI works very hard and respect the plan that hopefully that our needs can be amended and the plan to be expected. How will we deal with Inuit people in the communities according to Nunavut agreement? The plan as it is have to include and the well-being of the Nunavut communities in Nunavut plan. I think I have heard as NTI that the concern in Nunavut is towards wildlife and for safeguarding of the species and the Inuit hunting rights and the food security from the harvesting in the territories have to be a first priority in this plan. And these are, as NTI sees as a priority. We recognize how you have prepared the plan. The HTOs are instrumental in each community in your plan, and regional wildlife organizations are priority in your plan. Also, RIOs in Nunavut who are also very interested in Nunavut wildlife, and these have to all be included in Nunavut planning. Our regional organizations, you have to work with them to see what their ideas are see how this plan can work and function properly towards the Nunavut population. Let's not forget Inuit communities, their culture, their way of life, and how we should support their needs. And NTI recognizes and have concerns that the plans related to HTOs, Kajangmiut Regional Council, Kibaluk, Kajagtaluk, how they will react to your plan. The plan, any plan can always be made better, and communities have to be participating, so especially NTI. We are in support of you with polar bear population, how to safeguard the species, and walrus, the walrus hollow area, although this region does not have any walrus population, your plan indicated that where these species are, the support have to be there and preserved for these species to thrive. Migratory birds also have to be protected and planned as there is throughout the whole region in Nunavut, and the caribou habitats. We have to recognize that these are important species in all of the regions, although there are different caribou herds. How well we preserve these species, to look after them, to care for them. NTI believes truly that the polar bear protection is paramount important and should be priority in all of the regions. So, NTI, what we are able to do and what's in front of us as a job, you as a planning commission, you have prepared this document for the entire community and its population, and it applies to all regions. The Inuit, the business owners are also concerned about the economic well-being to their region and to their communities, how will the economy emerge in the regions and what job creations will be. When we created and negotiated this agreement, economy was of paramount importance, self-government, Inuit lifestyle. Sometimes the plans really impact many people in some negative ways. Your 2021 plan was very good in many ways. For instance, NTI have power, and they hold 1.8% of the subsurface rights in the territory. And in that first plan, that was indicated there. It didn't. But I didn't think it'd go far enough. I think it should have gone to 43% for the vast territory. This percentage is very small, so NTI is concerned that these areas, the concern should be amended to reflect the real need of the Inuit in our territory. And as NTI, the plan you have presented reflects what the region and the community and Inuit needs are. I think some of them would have small impact to the communities as it states in the plan. Inuit rights, Inuit concerns in our territory have to be addressed fully. People in Nunavut, Inuit-owned lands, are a little different to the other provinces. They're different from federal government territorial lands, so Inuit lands have to be prepared accordingly, so it could be much better and more towards Inuit culture. and how Inuit should manage their land. NTI believes the wildlife protection should be of priority in our regions. So we can accomplish all of these, say, for instance, in 50% of the Inuit lands. And the other concern that we have as NTI in this plan is to encourage government, and the government should in a way work with, when you apply your policies, it should be obligated to work with the Nunavut plan according to Inuit Benefit Agreement. And this has been stumbling block for many years, and it has to be corrected. For instance, Government of Canada has participated in IIBA and the permits applications, how they should be progressed and how people should apply for them. In our Nunavut territory, existing park, wildlife areas, migratory bird sites, sanctuaries, these have to be in place as they have been already and not be amended. We understand that Government of Canada have concerns about some of the zones. They have concern with the word limited on land use in this plan. We have to look at it a little more clearly in reflection that international concerns have to be looked at as well. Fresh water, supply water, and everything. All the plans related to 2021 plan, we respect you as NTI. There are lands that are prohibited for long-term conservation of mammals. The Inuit, according to the agreement, have all the rights. They could negotiate and plan what their needs are, negotiating with federal government, even up to the point. So I feel that Nunavut agreement has big concerns for the people of Nunavut, and both levels of government should be adhering to what we need. I said briefly that NTI is requesting to know what the Planning Commission, what you have prepared in 2021 should be revised, should be amended. And you will have to present it as amended product for the final agreement for this plan. NTI believes that the plan should also contain stricter control of wildlife preservation in all of the regions according to what regional wildlife organizations need. They are concerned for their land in their region, so we are asking Nunavut Planning Commission make amendments, consult, concentrate on wildlife so the population could be healthy. Inuit rights as hunters should also be addressed, and what their needs are as harvesters in each of the region through their regional wildlife organizations. So with these things in mind, the plan could really benefit Inuit in Nunavut in this plan. We know and we respect. to work with other organizations is very hard at the best of times. Work with HTOs, RWOs, you as a commission, and you can work together quite well to come up with the plan. So, concluding my presentation, Nunavut Planning Commission draft and its contents concentrate on Inuit well-being. We will support that area. It's important. Community concerns are very important to us. Always consult them. So you as a commission prepare a good plan. The plan you have will have to be a living document, as you have said, so it's best now to prepare it well for future use for the communities, for the regions, and the organization. Thank you. Thank you. We know that you will plan well. So in my conclusion, the plan you have, it's a huge territory. It's the biggest one in the world that an organization has ever attempted to produce. We are not alone who will benefit from this plan. The world, the Canadians, will benefit from what we have, and we need to finish this product. I say, for those who have selected land, we had a meeting in Kogluktuk. The meetings were 12 hours. It was tedious work to get where we are today. We skipped breakfasts, lunches. We negotiated round the clock. We have to remember their hard work when we are preparing something towards what they wanted, what they envisioned for Nunavut. Traditional lands, wildlife, camping areas are foremost important to them when they prepared, and after ratification it was finally amended and accepted. It took a lot of work, so when you plan for the future, do it well. Even to have a public hearing.
Those guys said it already. Let's revive it. I think all of us have a responsibility. The industry have a responsibility. The government have a responsibility. Nunavut and Inuit themselves have a responsibility to implement what those land court from selection people selected. They knew it's going to be eventually put in writing how the land will be used. Let's adhere to that and respect. You know, we can work together. We have differences. We will have differences all the time. Not only here, we'll have differences. The government will have differences. Industry will have differences. But we have to respect the ownership of the land and the settlement area. I think that's our goal. We didn't just sign. We signed to be responsible for implementation of the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement. Thank you very much. And if there's any question, I have staff here that will be able to answer questions with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions to the panel on the presentation?
Jonathan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is Jonathan Savoy from the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thank you very much, James, for your presentation. In NTI's written submissions and during the presentation today, it's been noted that NTI and the RIAs feel that the 2021 draft plan unnecessarily constrains decision-making and management rights over Inuit-owned lands. and calls for a distinct approach for Inuit-owned lands, with the requirement for different land use requirements on Inuit-owned lands compared to Crown lands. I'd like to ask, what specific options does NTI recommend for managing Inuit-owned lands from a land use planning perspective? Thank you.
Thank you, James Ituluk.
Yeah, Namik, if you can speak, you can move the microphone. State your name and your organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bert Dean with NTI's Wildlife and Environment Department. And I'll get Nada to help me out more on this. But in terms of specifics, I don't think we're in a position to be able to say specifically how that would go about. It's been talked about the last few days. We need engagement. We need engagement with the communities, whether it's the hunters and trappers organizations with their regional wildlife boards, but also with the regional Inuit associations. And again, as we've heard the last few days, there's still a lot of discussions that need to happen. We could, elaborate and provide more detailed responses to you, but in terms of what you're asking about specifics, it's more about a process. I mean, delegates are here, and there's a lot of expectations that they're representing their communities. I think we just have one delegate from Cougar, and Talojuac's been doing a lot of work in their community around it, so there's been a lot of discussions. And we heard from Kolokto this morning. So some communities have had that opportunity to discuss IOLs. But I think the concern is we want to make sure communities understand what the implications are. And as James indicated, Inuit selected those Inuit-owned lands, but we don't have that necessarily documented to say exactly what that is. And values change with time. So I'm going to stop there, but I'd like to ask Nada to just supplement.
There is one example in the submissions.
Reminder,
sorry.
Nada
Gonzalez with the NTI team as a consultant. There is one example in the written submissions. And I would state first that in the joint submission between NTI and the regional Inuit associations, there is a desire to retain the right to Inuit decision-making and management over Inuit-owned lands, and also a desire to ensure that the values for which the Commission is identifying for wildlife are also considered in that process. So there is one example in the written submissions that recently there has been correspondence sent to the hunters and trappers organizations to get their views and open discussions with the hunters and trappers organizations on this concept, and it's for the key bird migratory sites. So for those Class 1 key bird sites on Inuit-owned lands, we want to discuss with the hunters and trappers organizations a process on Inuit-owned lands that would be different than Crown lands. So on Crown lands, in those limited use areas, the suggestion is that the prohibited uses continue. And for Inuit-owned lands, what there is an interest in discussing is that the regional Inuit associations and Nunavut Tungavik would discuss with the hunters and trappers organization when a proposal comes forward, if it was on a key bird migratory site that was also on Inuit-owned lands, whether that project should go ahead given that the site is been marked for important for key bird migratory sites. I mean, I recall the the presentation earlier from the HTO in Cambridge about an issue with sandpipers. So that would be an example. The underlying premise on this is that the local hunters and trappers organization would be best placed to know what migratory birds might be impacted by a proposal, would know how a proposal could be approached, and if the hunter and trappers organization and regional Inuit Association agreed that a proposal could go forward and still protect the migratory birds, that then there should be the flexibility on Inuit-owned lands to move forward with certain proposals. So it really is what we're suggesting is that there's a discussion about a process that would take place differently on Inuit-owned lands versus Crown lands to respect that the Nunavut Agreement gives Inuit substantial rights for not just title of Inuit-owned lands, but management of those lands. And that the land use plan does apply to Inuit-owned lands, but it must apply in a way that minimizes the impact to that Inuit right to manage those Inuit-owned lands. Yeah.
Marie Belongo, yung maligal na kayo, yung
Marie Below.
I just want to supplement and support what my colleagues have mentioned. And just on the idea of treating Inuit-owned lands in a different way than Crown lands, it's not a new idea. It's actually entrenched in the Nunavut Agreement, where special attention has to be devoted to Inuit-owned lands in and of itself. And as far as we're aware, currently in the draft Nunavut Land Use Plan, there is only one very short paragraph that discusses Inuit-owned lands. And maybe a little bit in the options and recommendations here and there. All it says is that in Chapter 1, that the land use plan will apply, and it has to reflect the Inuit goals and objectives on those Inuit-owned lands. So we're on the same page there. But what has the Commission done to give that special attention to Inuit-owned lands in and of itself? Just the fact that they exist, the fact that they are there, and who owns the rights to those lands as landowners. That's a question, I think it's a fair question that could be asked. It doesn't have to be answered now, but it's not something that we have invented, or that's how the agreement has to be read as a whole, and every section has to be harmonious. And as Ituluk mentioned, and he was there during those negotiations, it was a big sacrifice that Inuit made. It was a huge trade-off that Inuit made in order to come to an agreement and to approve the Nunavut Agreement. Inuit collectively, not just NTI, it's a collective right. We don't own a lot of land in total in Nunavut. It's a very small percentage of subsurface and surface rights. And there was an intention for that. There's many purposes behind the selection of Inuit-owned lands and what they should be for, but part of it is for self-sufficiency, also for conservation and otherwise. So it's an actual Inuit right, and that's why it's so important to preserve opportunities and possibilities for those lands. And land use planning can't be done in Nunavut in the same way as elsewhere in the world or across Canada even, because Nunavut is unique and it's distinct, where Inuit negotiated with the government this treaty, a constitutionally protected treaty. And in that treaty, Inuit have become landowners. Where do you see that elsewhere in Canada? A very similar situation. It's absolutely unique. So land use planning has to consider this fact. It's an Inuit right. And I'm sure, that's why we also mentioned the importance of the right for Inuit collectively to be able to negotiate Inuit impact benefit agreements for benefits for the collective of Inuit as a whole, not just an organization, not just the other organization, it's collective rights. So how the NPC and how the draft, how the land use plan is going to reflect and devote that special attention to the fact that Inuit-owned lands exist with their own rights around that, that is to be determined. And that's, I think, what we're all trying to figure out. But it can't just be mentioned in passing. So far, I think what we're seeing in the draft Nunavut land use plan is that the Inuit-owned lands are mentioned in passing, but nothing further than that. So it's almost like consultation without accommodation. You can't just say, we know there's Inuit-owned lands, you own this land, that's it. We're going to, in effect, treat it like every other crown land or otherwise. I don't think that's a result that it's obviously not satisfactory for rights holders and landowners on behalf of Inuit as a collective.
Jonathan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Savoy with the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thanks to all the NTI representatives here today for their responses. I would just like to note that the NPC still requires details of the distinct approach that NTI feels is appropriate on Inuit-owned lands in the land use plan, and I just ask if NTI anticipates being in a position to provide more specific details on this distinct approach before the close of the record on January 10th, 2023. Thank you.
James?
Yeah, James Ituluk Nunavut Tungavik.
James Ituluk.
Later will answer that question.
Go ahead.
Nita Gonzalez, Nunavut Tungavik. Yes, that is the desire. Each region has different approaches to this as well, so those discussions are ongoing. You will be hearing further during the other regional hearings about different concepts for this, and the intention is to provide as much detail as possible to the commissioners by the close of the record. And as Marie has said, there is an expectation that that the land use plan will approach the right to Inuit decision-making on IOLs in a way that limits impacts, that really the effect should not be that Inuit are unable to use the right that they have to manage those lands. So we understand that the land use plan applies to Inuit lands, but it should apply in a way that limits the negative impacts on Inuit's ability to make decisions on those lands.
Enemy? Brian? Atigo?
Kuya na make sure that Brian aglukak na namume panay ko ne. Sibulak pa makay. Tukisin ng ngayong man.
I think we're unclear.
Taman na Nunavut nang miningin inung no pigiyaw blone
Inuit owns the
inung
land.
no sana jutiyaw lakto
was negotiated for
Blumi
Inuit.
ipaksa ungatane
And
inung ito
today,
sa alokpo
The day
kanilo ko yung
before,
mga
we've heard from Inuit delegation what their
amma
aspirations
ilitsi
are.
tungabikut inuit
And
kadusita
you,
katigi
as
imanelo suti
NTI,
inuit
now you're saying
ang yakuti tarong mata inuit ilakusin
has
menak
a
siwak suti
Nunavut agreement, so
amma
the protection
kadusita katigi
and
kut
land
tiay
can be
kut
had.
iman nga kartuti
And you
ubago
as
pila
NTI,
kayo yuti katimayo yugut isimadong napo Taman na abig simang
NPC staff will
taman na
make a plan.
pila kaya kayong imasulit ubago pang nahi kun
as
nunaling no
Planning
kangat ta
Commission,
inuit o kadla katigi
we
kangat
travel
tigo
to the communities, consult
inuit
with the
imanelo ko
population.
isu
Inuit says,
inuit
do
ilak ko
this.
sa kayang inuit makayo tigi
Culture,
sungu yang
Inuit
iman na
harvesting rights,
nang min ako tingi iyaming ni ayaw ni daw
their
tungi suti
own Inuit
umasungu
owned
mata ilak
land.
ko singi
They
iyang gawayaw
don't
mata
think
tema
of it as a divided
ilanga
land
kolauso
category.
kolanuso IOL
And IOL at times is disgusted.
teman
discussed.
luta inuit ilak ko siya iyaming ni
As we travel to the communities, as Nunavut Planning Commission, we have consulted with territories yesterday. We have heard Inuit here at Inuit Association, we as staff concentrate on Inuit. The Nunavut Planning Commission has been designated under Land Claims Agreement. Our concerns are with Inuit, their culture, their way of life, their harvesting rights. And the plan is not yet complete. Jonathan said, okay, you show the way how the land, Inuit own land will be emerging as a parcel for Inuit land. You know, how will it be? Now, yeah, it's, I know negotiations were very hard. Because of that, we are here today as a result. We adhere to it. We're concerned about it. So maybe I'll tell you this. We have our little differences, but our goal for our people, for the territory, is exactly the same. Here, as a planning commission, with NTI, when they signed the Nunavut agreement, and the understanding is that Inuit rights. We have been working towards that, but nothing much has come out of it. So here I ask, what do you think of the regions? RIOs work in relationship with NTI.
James
Ituluk, First Vice President, will answer your questions and will be supplemented by one of the staff. I will answer. Since the agreement, the regions were given as a designation to look after their own land, parcels of land in their regions. Inuit own lands were to be taken over by RIOs. This is where we were able to make the designation because each region's identified the parcels, whatever the organizations they may be. Not only that, everybody was given a chance to make the selection and work with Inuit designation organizations to show parcels of land. So
ilana jiging yari pilari hata
I know you mentioned we have different working ethics, but the goal is the same. This hearing by Nunavut Planning Commission, when you became a reality, I was a participant. So you become designated to work in this area. I work with many Inuit who owns many of the lands. Inuit own lands. Their wishes were where we stand now, and the commission was designated what they think if this body was to become a reality and work on Inuit needs. And here on 2021 draft land use proposal, it restricts parcels of lands in many ways. And you mentioned that NPC is working for the benefit of the territory according to the land claim agreement. And we have heard there are too many restrictions, although the parcels of land selection was given to the Inuit, and this initial work has become blurred and becomes very limited in many ways. It's reality, and the plan will be ongoing for many, many years. This is why we seem to be obstructive in its process, so it could be planned properly. People in the communities, have a lot of ideas, but the economy, the money, finances is always concerned. Many organizations, Inuit bodies, think that they will benefit greatly from these monetary issues, but don't forget, the real value is the abundance wildlife. If we manage it properly, abundant wildlife can bring economy to each region. And the bureaucrats at federal level or other Inuit organizations, they are concerned about the economy. At the same time, many are opposed to mining industry, and at the same time we say, where is the money coming from for these worker class to have good transportation, good vehicles, and other things. So the plan you are creating now, although it's a good plan, it's not going to be written in stone. It will have to work for everybody, and you will hear from people, organizations, your plan is not good enough. Although our work is based on this particular segment in agreement where it was given to you. So your questions, answers will be supplemented by my colleagues.
State your name and your organization.
Marie Below, lawyer for NTI. Itulu has good questions, so I will supplement his questions or answers.
I think in every society there's differing opinions. Even in one family, in one community, there's nothing wrong with that. It's normal, it's natural. But here, when we talk about Inuit-owned lands, and as land managers and landowners on behalf of Inuit as a collective, our concern is that the decision is made for us, or it's made already, when up to almost 50% of Inuit-owned lands have a very specific designation associated to them. We have no more choice. We have no more opportunity. The opportunity is lost to a certain extent. We have no more options other than maybe a plan amendment, but we all know that will not be a simple process. So I think we would be remiss as landowners not to do everything we can to highlight the fact that Inuit have negotiated this right to own land and have a self-determination over those lands. And it doesn't mean the outcome is already predetermined, but right now it is already predetermined. The decision is made for Inuit. So that's where it's a concern, and because it impacts the ability to look at various options. And I think this also applies to our concern relating to Inuit impact benefits agreements, where if these areas are already predetermined in the land use plan, we have very limited options after that. So it's an impact on Inuit very hard-fought rights that become limited, and the decision is made already within a land use planning process, and land use planning has a role, and it's very, very important. So how do we marry those rights, and so as to not close the door and limit any further possibilities for Inuit as a collective to negotiate benefits on the one hand, or to determine what will be done on lands that Inuit had selected and governments had agreed. Everyone has agreed that Inuit would own those lands. So how do we respect that process as well?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bert Dean with NTI Wildlife and Environment. I just went back to this slide with the importance of the Nunavut Land Use Plan to help. And I go down to the fourth bullet. A first-generation Nunavut Land Use Plan should focus on the issues that are most important to Inuit. It's not like we're going to get it all right this first time, and that's why we're focused on what's the amendment process, or if we do need to change it, or things down the road. And some communities are at a different stage in terms of what they want done with their lands. And then once they have that experience, and I think we saw it at some of the NERB hearings in Baker Lake for the Kigavik project around uranium, the community had a number of years experience with Agnico Eagle being there, with the Meadowbank mine. So they were familiar with what they liked or what they didn't like, or there were things with it. So a lot of the comments at that NERB hearing weren't necessarily about the Kigavik project. They were about their experience with mining in general, or what was going on in that community. So we're not going to get all the details in. We're going to hear different perspectives, as was mentioned, I think, by Jimmy. You know, the East has had less maybe experience or impact from development or exploration, whereas Cambridge Bay and Kolokto in the West, there's been a lot more experience with mining with the Northwest Territories and on the mainland and things like that. So there's different experiences between those communities. So how can we come up with a first-generation land use plan that focuses on the issues that are most important to you from the communities? What's your big issues? And I think we've heard them, you know, some of them, but some delegates have been involved in this process and had the workshops, and I think some This may be just their first or second time. Thank you.
Yeah, kaya namik. Apa ko di sa mo kanilang sinukang kanya tama.
Further questions, but before that, I think we'll take a break. Just a reminder, if you're going to talk, speak, present, state your name, your organization. Thank you for questions and answers to this point. We're here to work with everybody. 15-minute break for now. Thank you.
Testing. Yeah. Tema. Kuya Namik. Bigyan pala ako ng smigata. Okay, tema wala ima. Bigyan ako ng smigata. Kuya Namik. Pila kaya katata tinutin ng malata.
We'll resume to the panel for those of you who have more questions from the staff and delegates, registered guests.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharon Halawak, Executive Director with the Nunavut Planning Commission. We do have some more questions, and I'd just like to recognize, thank you so much for your presentation. And we do look forward to continue working collaboratively and getting the specific recommendations that will help the Commission and guide the Commission with decision-making on the presentations and directions. Jonathan Savoy, I'll turn it over to Jonathan, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Savoy from the Nunavut Planning Commission. Among the required revisions to the 2021 draft plan, NTI in the written submission along with the regional Inuit associations state that in terms of legal obligations, Inuit impact and benefit agreements, quote, must be enabled through land use designations. We're wondering if you have any recommendations as to how IIBAs could be, quote, enabled through the plan's land use designations, or any updates you could provide on those discussions would be appreciated. Thank you.
Just a reminder before I go to James, when you're going to use acronym, please say them. Just a reminder, James.
James Itulung
NTI.
Nadab
Nadab will answer the question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nada Gonzalez with the NTI team. So there are ongoing discussions with the governments that are happening on how that could be facilitated. We're hopeful that there could be more direction on that. I think as a preliminary answer that we certainly will be following up in writing, that when there are plan requirements that outright would prevent the government from meeting legal obligations in the Inuit impact and benefit agreements, that there will have to be adjustments to the plan requirements that would allow the government to meet their legal obligations. So that's the general premise, and certainly there'll be follow-up response in writing specific to each of the Inuit impact and benefit agreements.
Marie Bello, Nunavutungavik, Maligaleriuyunga.
Lawyer.
Yes, I just want to supplement the NADA's response, and I have alluded to it a little bit earlier in the same kind of vein as the discussion on Inuit-owned lands, is that, again, Inuit negotiated very important and specific rights within the Nunavut Agreement And that includes the right to negotiate Inuit impact benefit agreements when there's long-term protection and conservation areas, as well as negotiating land ownership on Inuit-owned lands. So what we're seeing in both cases is an effect, what the consequence of this current draft is on those two sets of very important collective rights for Inuit. And we always have to ensure at every step that the Nunavut Agreement is being respected and implemented. So when it appears that through a land use planning process, some of those very important rights are being skirted around, or that an opportunity is missed or an opportunity is lost, that is a huge concern for Inuit. And again, similarly to the Inuit-owned lands question, how do we avoid that? How do we get to a result that marries both the land use planning process while respecting Inuit opportunities to negotiate Inuit impact benefit agreements? As Neda said, it's still in discussion, and we appreciate that it's on the Nunavut Planning Commission's radar. And this is something that we all have to put our minds to see how that can work, how that can happen, while giving reassurance to Inuit that the opportunity is not lost forever, or that we have reassurance that, or certain commitments that even if lands are conserved and protected, similarly to other types of conservation areas and those types of things, that the door is not closed forever. It's not, again, the decision is not made for Inuit, and that we don't miss an opportunity. And in fact, it's Inuit who will be negatively impacted in the end. We don't want Inuit to miss out on opportunities, miss out on possibilities to negotiate benefits for their communities. That's the main concern. So how to do that is something that the Nunavut Agreement, it has to be read as a whole. And, this will be the first Nunavut-wide land use plan. So all of these rights and obligations and processes have to be conducted and implemented in a way where Inuit rights will not be negatively impacted as a collective.
Jonathan, any other question? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Savoy from the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thank you very much for the response to the previous question. Among another one of the quote, required revisions to the draft plan, NTI has noted that the draft plan has not sufficiently reflected the goal of Nunavut-Tungavik and the regional Inuit associations of retaining decision-making and management rights over Inuit-owned lands. We noted that, I guess over 50% of Inuit-owned lands across the territory are in a mixed-use designation with all uses, where all uses would be permitted. And we're just wondering, what would Nunavut-Tungavik Incorporated consider as sufficiently reflecting your goals on Inuit-owned lands? Thank you.
James?
James Hitiluk, Neda Kiwnang.
Atigo, go ahead.
Neda, thank you for the question. Neda Gonzalez with the Nunavut team. I think we've answered part of this question already today, but to reiterate, that there will be multiple goals for Inuit-owned lands. As written, it's Inuit goals and objectives, so it's definitely it's going to be a range of goals. I'll just repeat that a foundational goal for Inuit-owned lands is the retention of decision-making authority over Inuit-owned lands. So I think that's the foundation. And then there may be specific goals for specific regions or specific parcels. So we will be following up on more details on that, but I think as the starting point is that we're looking for the land use plan to explicitly recognize that the right to manage Inuit-owned lands is an important right, and that the land use plan has been modified to reflect what the various Inuit goals and objectives are at a territorial level, at a regional level, and in some cases at a community level.
Jonathan, no further questions. Sharon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Nada, for the answer. I'm wondering, through James speaking and the NTI presentation, you told us where to give priority and great weight, and I thank you for that, with wildlife and the protection and the Inuit goals. I'm wondering if you could provide further direction or guidance to the Commission. We have heard all of the community members and their presentations on behalf of their communities and how they would like to see the land in and around their areas in regards with the HTOs and the hamlets, how they would like to see their land managed. And their presentations are very different from the Kitikmeot Inuit Association and NTI's. And I'm wondering if you could give us some guidance of how we could bridge the differences so the Commission could make sound decision-making that would meet the needs of both the communities, all of the Inuit represented here today, the organization, and NTI. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
James?
James
Go ahead.
Nada Gonzalez, Nunavut Tungavik. That's an important question. I think at this point it'll be a preliminary answer because a lot of these concepts are still evolving. At the outset, I would say, given the presentation this morning, that there is a desire to protect wildlife, that it is an important priority. And in the presentation, there's a clear statement that there is a strong belief that Inuit-owned land decision-making is not or can and should be in keeping with also wildlife priorities. So there's a desire to do both so that Inuit retain Inuit decision-making on Inuit-owned lands and also wildlife is adequately protected and that there's protection measures. So we're working on how that can be accomplished. There's been a start to those discussions for the key bird migratory sites, and we're going to continue to have discussions. And there's going to be different approaches that'll be heard in front of the Commission from a regional basis. And we know that already from the written submissions. So we don't see that there's a contradiction in those two concepts, that wildlife can be protected and Inuit can maintain decision-making over Inuit-owned lands. It's working out how that happens and how it happens on a regional basis.
In the mic, Tigo, ilagay ako majay. Go ahead.
Marie Bello, Nunavutungavik. I'm not sure I have a whole lot to add that will be of value to this question. Just general observations that, as I've mentioned earlier, it's normal and natural that there's varying opinions, values, priorities, perceptions in a community, amongst a cultural group, in a family, even one individual from one day to the next day. They have different ideas and different options. So there's nothing wrong with this picture. No one is wrong in this. We each have mandates in our organizations. HTO has a mandate. A hamlet represents certain people. NTI has a mandate. Regional Inuit associations have a mandate. Even within NTI, we have various departments. We have social and cultural department, lands and resource, wildlife and environment, human resource, legal. We have all of those mandates and views, perspectives within one same organization. There's no conflict there. There's nothing wrong with having different mandates and different perspectives and priorities. So I think the Nunavut Planning Commission has a difficult task, but you've mentioned that right from the introduction on the first day. You have a difficult task to marry and to find a way to look at all the different groups, interest groups, right holders groups, any kind of group that will be contributing to this land use planning process, to weight all of those perspectives, all of the submissions, and come to a final determination. You have a very difficult job. But as Inuit, to have differing perspectives, it's not anything wrong. In any society, that's the case all across Canada. In Canada, we're all Canadians, but there's differing philosophies and perspectives, and that's fine. So here, we're not against each other. We all want the same thing: thriving Inuit, healthy environment, prosperity for Inuit in the long term. What that will look like, it's different for every person, and it's different for different organizations. But is one right and the other one wrong? No. So there's no disagreement. I want to say there's no disagreement, there's no conflict. Like, in a way, we all want to listen to each other. Mamiana. We all want to listen to each other, and the Planning Commission has a difficult task of making those final determinations. And as NTI, we are a signatory in the end. We will be part of an approval process. So we also will be part of that task of looking at the bigger picture, looking at the plan as a whole. And it's not going to be easy. But NTI, I think we have highlighted very specific elements that refer to very specific rights that were negotiated in the Nunavut Agreement. I think that's part of what we have highlighted, and that's fine to ensure that those rights are preserved to a certain extent. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but I wanted to add that.
Namik, Sharon, you have another question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharon Halawak, Executive Director of the Nunavut Planning Commission. I thank you for acknowledging the challenge that commissioners have to strike a balanced plan and listen to all of the evidence that's being presented. The Commission, you know, this process has been a long process. There's a lot of pressure on the Commission to conclude the planning process. And we encourage and continue to ask for open communications, specific solutions and recommendations while respecting all parties, as we're mandated to do. And the record does close on January 10th. So I would ask NTI and all others, please, to recognize that the communities have been saying they want this land use plan, others want this land use plan, and this is a first generation plan. As James eloquently said, it's a first generation plan. It's not going to be perfect, but there's opportunity to change it and amend it. And we encourage everyone to give us your submissions, your solutions, your ideas. And we also encourage all participants to work collectively to find opportunities where you have common ground and help the commissioners make those decisions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's a comment rather than a question.
Microphone for Dini.
Thank you, Sinuk Hamlet Councillor Talokyoak this morning. In the opening remarks, that foremost concerns are the Inuit in Nunavut area. Despite having said that, the lawyer has mentioned seems to be conflicting from the opening remarks and the answers given by NTI Legal Counsel. I want, as a Talokyo community, to be in harmonious relationship with organizations including NTI. The land has been designated, and I was made to understood that designations are very small compared to the territory. The Nunavut impact, how can we say this in Inuktitut? It still varies region to region. We need this to be passed as well and become a firm policy. As for me, I understood. I think both of you as organization, as NTI and KIA, Kitikmute, are looking for more strong-arm tactics, more control of each community and Inuit needs. Why is this? Kowalak was here. She made a good presentation. And it's very hard now to see a real benefit from the organization that are representing us. Our needs are always appear to be neglected. You have to be clear with us. Where do you stand? Even in harvesting, Inuit are shared with the catches. We like to have continued relationship with our communities. Now regionally, how will this work in harmony? How will you look at us? Are we at lower rank, different ranks? How will this work?
Thank you, Chair. James
Hituluk. There.
Sorry. Thank
you. There are always different tasks. It's our duty to make presentations even to this group, how the plan should be. At this point, we will not solve what we're discussing. It will have to be refined in further meetings and further plannings. There will be many hearings within Nunavut. We can have working relationship. You said that we cannot have all we ask for, but the harmony can be there. We can work, even if the plan is not approved. How can we refine it? How can we work at it? So our questions here at this proceeding can all have answers to benefit everybody. It is normal in all boards that no consensus ever take place. Water Board, NPC, and other organizations, even when the public hearings are concluded, you will have to analyze and see what was proposed by the people in the proceedings. Ideas have to be put together to determine if what we are coming up with is ideal for our future. I cannot say it's a bad idea. How do you know it's a bad idea when we are not there, when we have a lot of rooms to make it much better? It's always better to negotiate, to come up with a conclusion that would benefit everybody. But at this hearing, it has its benefits, so this plan can go ahead, and it's just that everybody is given a chance to voice their opinion. Land users, organization who want to use the land, Talukyo Hamlet, exploration that have staked at Botia Peninsula. There are many organizations and many factors that will have to agree to at the end. We cannot say this plan is perfect. It needs amendment, needs modifications. There are many ways to acquire funding, so all bodies who are concerned can start working on how we could work working harmoniously within Inuit Board, say harvesting and other benefits to the communities. They're there. Everything is not that easy when you get down to it and start planning on it. When we negotiated with federal government, everything we wanted on the table was not granted. Makivik and Inuvialuit experienced the same thing. And once the plans, their rights were granted, they found that there were many flaws to it. But we keep going, we keep working to make amendments like Nunavut Planning Commission should. If your plan does not work, if it's not perfect, don't stop there. See what else you can do so you can continue modifying it and making it working for everybody. Just my comments, we are not opposing you. We are not in favor of you. We are just at this time making presentation what our opinions are towards Nunavut Land Use Plan. That's where we are right now.
Thank you. Tema. Salome. Lady over here.
Thank you, Chair. Salome Kacholik Hamlet. First of all, I would like to say at 4 today, my aunt is being funeral today in Johaven. So Wednesday today there will be funeral of my relative. So I would like to thank you as NTI. First, I say when land claim was signed and when land was designated to different parcels, and this has been ongoing modification and correction from the mistakes James mentioned. James mentioned nothing comes easy to resolve. There will be problems and negotiations to correct what the problem is. I know this will take place in 1986. When was it? We appeared that we had no rights, so it was very hard for people up here to have any rights until NTI start negotiating for us and our future, and what we have today. They're quite beneficial. But when Inuit will be understood what our real needs are, so the future can have a relatively easy life. I just want to express my opinion to everyone, you the panel. I have no questions for you or no disagreement with you and the Planning Commission. David. David.
Right next to you, Beth. Atigo.
Thank you, Chair. David Tutalik, Telegraph Hamlet Councillor, and to our community population and to the region in general. My question is, my concern, while NTI is sitting at the panel with the first Vice President, and KIA have also a high-level delegation as well, I think it would be beneficial. I'll try to keep it short. Since the land claims agreement was signed, I was made to understood that it will be recognized. Now where is this today? And I still understand today. If you don't clarify to me, I will eventually perhaps have it clarified to me. The language, the dialects, Canada, English, we French, we, Dene, I don't know if their language is recognized officially. Inuit language will need to be fully recognized, put into Constitution. That way we could feel being part of the country through KIA, through NTI, our policy makers, Nunavut Planning Commission. And if this is not your priority, how will you deal with unilinguals? Even today, there are advances, I understand. Inuit Governor General speaking our language. Inuit members of parliament. Although I think we should strive to keep our language alive, the group should work hard, pursue its legality, work on this, my language. And someone said from Lucy Taipana had the same concern. As for me too, I am very much in favor of empowering my language. Is it really in legislation, so I can't have my language. It will have to be, if it is, it will have to go on into the future through legislation as a protected language. I mention this for listening to my concerns, Chair. It's just a general comment. It's not a question. We hear it, and perhaps people will discuss it during breaks. It has been heard what your concerns are. I think here we'll concentrate on Nunavut Planning Commission hearings towards the use of the land, and we want to concentrate on this. We are not looking at other policies wherever they may arrive from as a policy.
Gentleman down at the
Questions, please. Thank you, Chair. I will speak in both languages at this hearing. Are we using the word too much? Isn't it harmonious decision making? There are too many of you who seems to be working alone. This is not a working relationship. When you say I too much, it does not fit well into this meeting. We should show that we are working relationship, and there's too many me. Shouldn't we not come to conclusions as a group? When you speak, be more aware that it's not you, me, or someone.
When there's lots of people listening to you, and you represent the agency, we'd like to hear. I represent this agency, and we heard, we were. We might have to come back to that word "I" and come to your meeting and say "I." That "I" might cost us $1 million or $10. So some of us are almost word perfect in our minds, but not in our speaking.
Thank you. I'll take that as a general comment. Not as a questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bobby Greenlee, Ekaluk Duchak Hunters and Trappers Organization's Chair. Just a question, probably KIA or NTI. Maybe both groups can answer, but we have a lot of traditional camping areas, and we have families that go and fill out the required paperwork to stake that area or mark that area. I don't know if I'm wrong in saying that, but if that's the case, I want to know if both entities are going to have that information present for those families, so we can make sure that those camping areas that are staked by those families are going to be on this list, so no other entities can come in and mark that area for mining or exploration or whatnot. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, so just to get clarification on that for not only around here, but maybe other communities have the same situations going on. So it'd be nice to get that cleared up, and that way everybody knows, those families would know what's going on. If other entities, mining exploration or whatever, comes into their traditional camping area that they had thought they had marked. Thank you.
James.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. James Tuluk, NTI. I mentioned before, during negotiations, these were huge concerns too at the time. Traditional camps, outpost camps, and Inuit-owned lands opposed to Crown lands, perfectly divided under the agreement. It's part of the backbone of the Nunavut agreements, Inuit culture, Inuit way of life, and it is still today. Sometimes the industry, without any consultation, just place themselves in areas for work. This was before. To the families, each family have their traditional areas. It's a real part of Nunavut agreement, and it's a protection for your concern, your question. When Nunavut Planning Commission started their public hearings, it was very much in evidence that they care about this, and they consulted the communities how the land will be used and reflected in a final Nunavut land use plan. No, it's better if we could have it recorded, and it is. If it's not recorded, general comments of these sites is almost impossible to pinpoint.
Go ahead.
I think this is the type of question that we can speak to the Kitikmeot Inuit Association and get back to you and the group. But if we could get back to you during this hearing, I think we could provide a better response.
No, Teman, no more question. Any other question from the community representatives? I don't see any hand. Oh, aparigamayok.
Thank you, Chair. Jimmy Uligatalak, Talograd, HTO.
I'd like to know if we have a Inuit protected area. If we had it, can we take the Inuit owned land and use them somewhere else in Nunavut?
James.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jimmy, for your questions. If we can work on Inuit lands and Inuit-owned lands, where you're asking on the parcels of lands.
Back to Jimmy. Tigo.
Jimmy Gattali, Tamna Alberto.
Otia Peninsula. We need conservation and protection of that area for that Inuit have use. We don't want too many changes made to what we've been asking for. James Ituluk. Yes, we're pretty much aware that the land is very important to you at its designation and overlapping areas in different land designations to the groups.
Go ahead.
Chair, Chris Kaluk, Nunavut
Chris
Tumivik
Kaluk,
Incorporated.
NTI.
To answer this, in the creation of Nunavut and the Nunavut Agreement, some communities gave up significant amounts of surface and subsurface Inuit-owned lands, namely Talakjuak, Pang, Chester, and so on. They gave up mineral title lands, Kimirut, Iqaluit, Coral, Cambridge, Joe, Arctic Bay, received very little, giving up almost all their quantum of mineral title lands. Sorry, I'm going too fast. To our knowledge, there was no formal charter agreement or understanding signed between the regional Inuit associations to formally recognize this transfer of land and mineral titles during the creation of the Nunavut Agreement. It was simply decided that mineral title would be jointly held through Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated on behalf of all Inuit and Nunavut. If we were to look at transferring existing Inuit-owned lands to lands elsewhere, we would have to renegotiate the Nunavut Agreement. It would have to be signed by His Royal Highness, our new king. Just for thought.
Thank you.
Any more questions to the panel? Appears now none. Thank you.
Registered participant, if there's any questions to the
from
presentation,
registered participants?
go ahead, Peter.
Thank you for allowing me to come back up here. Peter Taptuna, Katakamid Inuit Association. Just for clarification, I probably omitted a clarification when I did not mention Crown lands during our presentation. KI, of course, does have the jurisdiction and authority on Inuit-owned land. And specific to Ms. Iqsalaw's question on HTO and IPCA, we are aware that it's a huge landmass area, initially approximately 67,000 square kilometers, and that'll impact approximately 12,000 square kilometers of Inuit-owned lands. And the rest is Crown lands. KI really doesn't have any jurisdiction over Crown lands, but we do play a part in anything that may impact Inuit-owned lands through Crown land, but that's yet to be determined. That's why I did indicate that there is multiple parties that we have to discuss with and come to some sort of arrangement or an agreement. Just for clarification, Mr. Chair.
It's general comment by KI.
Gentleman want to ask a question? Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Jim McEachern, CAO with the municipality of Cambridge Bay. My question is, I guess, for NPC, and it's more of a process question. I've been involved in these discussions since 2010. During that time, there's been a lot in terms of climate change. We've gone through 3 different MLAs, 5 different mayors, countless turnover on council. So priorities are constantly changing. These discussions have been going on for 15 years, and the record closes January 10th now. So I'm wondering, how we get beyond just these discussion stages and what the next steps are.
Sharon.
Sharon Halawak, Executive Director for the Nunavut Planning Commission. Thank you, Jim, for recognizing the lengthy process. The next steps, as you know, we're holding the 5 public hearings, and the next steps will be for after the public hearings. The record does close on January 10th. The next steps, as outlined in the Nunavut Agreement, will be for commissioners to review the evidence and the submissions at these public hearings, and for the commissioners to weigh the evidence, make decisions, revise the 2021 draft plan, and put forward the final version of the plan to the signatory parties for consideration. And the Commission has committed to doing that in 2023, early 2023. That was our commitment to the parties and others. And so that's the next steps in the process. Does it end the process? Absolutely not. It will continue. As we've said, the document is a living document. Once we have an approved first-generation plan in place, the opportunity as new data sets become available will be provided through minor variants or amendments or the complete review of the land use plan as we go forward. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Someone have a question? Go ahead.
Pamela Wong for the Kitikmeot Regional Wildlife Board. I'm just wondering if NPC could briefly describe the amendment process. I'm just thinking if it took 15 years to get to this point, how easy would it be to make an amendment, and if you have any comments on that. Thank you.
Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharon Halawak, Executive Director for the Nunavut Planning Commission. I'm going to ask Jonathan Savoy to outline the current amendment process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Jonathan, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is Jonathan Savoy from the Nunavut Planning Commission, and thank you, Pamela, for the question. The Commission's plan amendment process is generally set out in the Nunavut Agreement and the Nunavut Planning and Project Assessment Act, but the Commission also has an internal procedure on how we conduct plan amendments. So I refer you to those for more detailed guidance. But in summary, any person or organization or the Commission itself can propose a plan amendment at any time. That could be a company seeking to get approval for a project that does not conform or is not supported by a land use plan, or could be from any individual or organization with new information available to reconsider the requirements of the plan, to update it, in effect. The Commission is required to consider all plan amendments, all proposed plan amendments it receives. It can ask for additional information that may be necessary to give full and proper consideration of the proposed amendment. The Commission then has the discretion to identify the appropriate scope or scale of the public review of the proposed plan amendment. So the Commission is required to publicly review each amendment, but does have discretion to set how that process unfolds. So that could range from a very straightforward administrative amendment. So for example, if a national park is fully established while an approved land use plan is in place, a plan amendment process could be conducted to remove that area from the jurisdiction of the land use plan. The commission would, post notice, and perhaps invite comments, but there wouldn't be need for public hearings and steps of that nature. Of course, the plan amendment could be much broader in scope than an established national park, and if that was a single community's secondary drinking water supply, for example, the discussion, engagement, and consultation around that proposed amendment could be relatively small in scale. But if there were large, whole-scale changes to the draft plan proposed that impacted a whole region or the entire territory, the required public review process would be necessarily greater. The Commission would then be required to submit a recommendation to the federal government, the territorial government, and Nunavut-Tungavik Incorporated before the proposed plan amendment could take effect. The Commission would be able to recommend the proposed amendment be rejected, but in order to actually amend the plan, it would need to go through to all three of the signatory parties to the draft plan, or the approved plan itself. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from registered guests?
From the registered participant? I don't see any hand. There was someone from the public wanted to ask a question too. I'm not sure if he's still here, but I'll give that an opportunity for that person to ask the question from the public. I guess he left.
I don't think there are no more questions, and becoming near noon. Thank you for the presentation.
$115, Pierre Canal number 115.
115.